This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. What I'm looking at today is 2021's The Deep House, directed by Alexandre Bustillo and Julian Maury. And this is a really good movie that is all suspense, and for me illustrates why horror movies are such an interesting genre. Namely because within the genre, there's so many different types of movies. This is the way I feel also about superhero movies, at least Marvel ones in particular. And that's not to say everything will be to someone's taste. Some people may not like slasher movies, for instance. Some people may not like what they call horror porn, a term which I don't believe exists, frankly. But it illustrates the point that there's so many different varieties and flavors of horror, and it makes it really interesting. And The Deep House is, for the most part, an atmosphere film. It's very little, virtually no gore, in fact, and it's more about people trapped in circumstances beyond their control. The story revolves around these two urban explorers named Ben and Tina. And what Ben loves to do is explore abandoned buildings, something I really empathize with because that's one of my things as well. I love a good abandoned building and walking through it and imagining how the people who are no longer there lived. It's really interesting, and it's also part of my architecture kick. I really like buildings and structures and stuff like that. And this is Ben's thing. And he drags Tina along. Drags isn't quite fair, to be totally honest, though it's also something she doesn't particularly enjoy doing. She loves Ben, so therefore she comes along. And she's getting a feel for it, but it's not one of her favorite things at all, while it is the only thing that drives Ben. He cares about seemingly nothing else but doing that. And that makes their relationship somewhat tense, or I should say, it should make their relationship somewhat intense. The movie displays numerous instances of Ben being really callous to Tina. For instance, she acknowledges that she is not really a fan of urban exploring, but she goes with him anyway because, as I said, she loves him. Though he'll take advantage of the situation by scaring her in some abandoned structure which she's not at all crazy to be in the first place. And this thread runs throughout the entire movie, which is a pity because I would have liked the story to at least try to reconcile her feelings with what goes on around her with her boyfriend. So it's a minor quibble, but it's something that's present throughout the movie that's never actually acted on, and that's a bit of a pity. In any case, Ben hears about this sunken town in France, I believe. Now keep in mind, when I say sunken town, I mean a town that has been deliberately drowned due to creating a new river or lake. This happens quite a bit. Wherever it's well suited for a town to become a river, or there's going to be a dam placed nearby, they will drown towns. This is not unusual at all, and it's really creepy, in fact, because sometimes the town remains relatively intact just underwater. This was actually a similar subject matter that was used in Netflix's Gore, which, if I recall, was pretty interesting as well. In any case, they get to this place in France where there's this town that's underwater, and they arrive to see people frolicking. People are just having a ball. In other words, it's very touristy, which immediately turns Ben off. Though conversely, that engages Tina because what she wants is just to spend time with him and maybe not go on these adventures every single moment. And so Ben promises, okay, let's just be tourists. Let's just have a good time. Though Ben weasels out of it rather quickly when he learns that the spot where they are with all the tourists actually doesn't have any real town in it. The houses were destroyed. Though, supposedly there is a section of this lake where there is an intact house that they could explore. This is where the movie starts to get really interesting, and it has a very Lovecraftian tone. And in fact, there is a part where one of the characters says, "That which is dead cannot return alive." Something to that effect, which is from Robert Bloch's Strange Eons, if I'm not mistaken. So that's really interesting, and the whole Lovecraft angle really carries through. And this is a very good Lovecraft-esque movie. As I mentioned earlier, it's very much based on suspense. It uses the concept of being afraid and trapped in a very enclosed space very effectively. It really works in that way. So eventually, this person they meet takes them to where they can enter the water to view this house. The Deep House is very much a haunted house movie, but you add the added peril of being trapped underwater the entire time. It's a nice twist, though the only problem is that it doesn't really build on that in an interesting way. At least I don't think. For instance, they do discover a house underwater, and they're exploring with a drone that he has. Real expensive looking drone, by the way. They come to notice that it's really difficult to find an entrance to the house, leading to the conclusion that it's been boarded up, either to keep people out or to keep something in. They do manage to find an entrance though, and that's where things start to go to shit, because the last inhabitants of the house, keep in mind, it's been underwater for something like at least 20 years, never left. So what Ben and Tina now have to deal with is not only escaping this house, but its inhabitants. As I said, this is where the movie takes a very Lovecraft-esque turn, and it's really interesting to watch. And Bustillo and Maury at this point really amp up the tension and the fear, because Ben and Tina can't seem to find their way out, while there is something that should not be in the house with them as well. There's a mystery that's unveiled, which is interesting too, but it's the ending, while not bad, is very unsatisfying for the reason I mentioned, which, to repeat, is that much is made of Tina not being comfortable with doing what she's doing, but she never gets her comeuppance. She suffers a similar fate, well, I should say she appears, at any rate, to suffer a similar fate as Ben does, though there are allusions to Christianity in her dying, so it is perhaps possible she escaped, not in a physical sense, but in a sense that her soul is free, which is interesting, though I think it would have been a little more satisfying if she had actually survived, considering that the movie spends a lot of time building up her discomfort, what she has been doing. In any case, The Deep House is really good, really suspenseful, and as I said, the worst you're going to get out of it really are curses, but it's a damn well put together movie. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow.